Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start today with a question. What does an orange have to do with our current ways of working? Now, over the last few days, we've heard it's been really exciting hearing all about the latest progress that we've made with big data within the geoscience industry. But what we've also seen is that there's been another number of limitations and blockers, and there have been some really common themes that have come up over the last 2 days. The first of these is data accessibility. There's been lots of accessibility has been talked about time and time again. It's how we make our data accessible in a form that we can use easily. There's also been a theme of collaboration, and we're saying we're collaborating, but are we actually truly collaborating? And the third theme is that there's lots of exciting bits of things that are being done out there, but are we actually joined up as an industry and really making that next step in big data within geoscience? So to me, I see it as an orange, and that you've got all these little segments. So whether those segments represent great data, great people, or great technologies, at the minute they're all a bit segmented and they're not all joined together. And it's looking at how we can actually get the full benefit out of all these exciting ideas. This conference is a great place to start. It's so interesting to see all the different industries coming together and academia and all those ideas being shared around. But it's how do we keep that momentum going forwards? So what I wanted to propose is a boundaryless future, a future where everyone actually works together and collaborates to really make real steps forwards in big data within geoscience. And it's also, what I'd like to think is it's an area where everyone has equal access to the technology and scale. With the cloud compute out there now, it's not only the big players that have access to that large compute, and it's really democratizing the industry. So what do I mean by a boundaryless future? The boundaryless future is, the term boundaryless was first coined by Jack Welch in the 1990s, when he talked about a boundaryless company. And it's that idea of breaking down those silos and actually working together for the greater good. And so if you can we take this concept one step further, and rather than having a boundaryless company, having a more boundaryless industry? Now, I can hear what you're saying. Your first question is, well, hang on a minute. It works all very well inside a company where you're all working towards the same common goal. But we're in, a lot of people are in competitive industries, whether that's competing in the license rounds, whether that's competing for academic funding. If we share all our latest innovations and ideas with each other and with our competitors, what happens to our competitive edge? So I want to talk about whether coopertition is the future. Now, coopertition is an area of research that's really taking hold at the minute. It's still an emerging area, but it's really prominent in the management literature at the minute. And so coopertition is defined as competing companies that collaborate. So that's competing firms that are working together for their mutual benefit. Now, this is an area that's still evolving, but one of the key themes that is emerging is how coopertition benefits innovation, and actually you get improved innovation performance when companies work in this framework of coopertition. And there's a lot of great examples about that. And yeah, it's something that's considered to be a key area into the future. So to give an example, let's take the cloud industry. It's very relevant at a big data conference. And if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, there's two clear leaders at the minute, and that's Microsoft and Amazon. And they're the main rivals and competitors in the field of cloud infrastructure as a service. But yet, last October, they announced a project which is Gluon. I don't know whether people have heard of that. But basically, it's open source, deep learning interfaces for machine learning models. And they're collaborating together on this. And why? Because there's a mutual benefit to both companies by having this. So if they can do it, they're two of the biggest competitors within the cloud industry. Why can't we be doing a bit more of this? So it's recognised that cooperation has this balance of risk and reward, and it's recognised that there is a risk associated with collaborating with your competitors. So if we want to understand whether that risk is worthwhile, we need to understand what the benefit of that is. So how do you put a price on the value of innovation? Well, I know Steve Garrett on Tuesday gave some great examples within the industry of where innovation was really adding business value. And there's huge potential. I mean, I'm coming from the field of the oil and gas industry, but you've got potential to realise more oil and gas. You've got the potential to realise it sooner, and identify new prospectivity. And if you can do that at pace and actually kind of get going with it all, then you've kind of got the potential to maximise that economic recovery. So Liz Wild talked yesterday about this, but historically, the oil and gas industry was considered to be a huge data industry. We were known for having large data sets that were kind of unwieldy, that needed large amounts of compute. But you look at it today and it's no longer the case. It's no longer the case in terms of the volume that we've generated, and it's also no longer the case in terms of the velocity that data is being generated. You only need to compare us to the likes of Netflix or Facebook to see that we're no longer one of the kind of big data industries in that sense. And we've got an example here from the Amazon Prime Day. Liz Wild in her talk talked about that Shell had in their geoscience and wells database, they had 60 to 70 petabytes of data. Now that's collected over decades, and Amazon generated that in almost the same. They generated 52 petabytes in one day on Amazon Prime Day last year. I mean, it's hard to get your head around in terms of just how big that is. And the thing is that the cloud compute and the cloud storage systems, they're designed to handle those rates and those volumes of data, and that power's all out there. Imagine what it can do to our industry. So it's a really exciting place to be right now. So hopefully I've convinced you on the why we might want to do this, but how. And I come back to the kind of issue of data accessibility. And as I say, this has been a constant theme throughout the conference in terms of how do we make this data accessible. So for those in a company, how much of your seismic database is live on your system? Is it 50%? Is it 20%? I don't know, maybe less than 5%. Or do you have no idea how much data you have and where it is? Can you put your hands on every piece of data if you wanted to? Where is it stored, the data that's not on the system? Is it in the same building as you? Is it in a warehouse somewhere stuck on a tape? Or is it maybe even in a different country? And I guess for those of you in academia, it's like, are you getting access to the data that you want? Do you have enough of it? And do you have the data that you need to test your latest research on? I mean, I've recently heard stories of companies. I mean, I've heard 2 or 3 stories within the last month of several companies that are buying data that they already have. They're repurchasing it because it's easier to repurchase it than try and find it within their company. I mean, it's just mad. And this issue of data accessibility is kind of where Osokey was founded. So we were a group of geoscientists. We all were working in large operators. And we had real frustrations about actually being able to access the data that we wanted and to collaborate on it in an effective manner. And so we kind of framed that problem, as we talked about. You frame the problem before you try and solve it. So we took that problem and we set up Osokey. And so this is kind of what we've built. It's like if you imagine a Google Maps. So it's equivalent to a Google Maps, but at the same time, you can see all your seismic data on your system. So it's just open through a web browser, and you're looking at every seismic line, whether that's archived or whether that's live on your system. Now imagine if you could actually click on any seismic line and see the data. So that's your seismic data, and that includes pre-stack and post-stack data. And you're viewing the actual data. It's not an image of the data, you're viewing the actual data. And that data is stored in the cloud, and it's stored in SegWi format, so it's an international format, which means you've got no issues with vendor lock-in or file conversion. And that data is then in the cloud, and that enables you to access all the latest innovations that are going on and bring them directly to your data. And this is Osokey Stream. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a kind of methodology and how we've got to where we are. For us, it was very much kind of taking advantage of the power of the cloud. So don't worry too much about within SegWi, if you don't really know, there's a lot of different kind of variations and file formats within the format of SegWi. And our approach is very much just get it in the cloud, because once you've got it in the cloud, then it's much easier to work with and to handle. So put all your SegWi data in the cloud, and then you need to look at how you're going to read that data. And for us, it's very important about actually automating that data reading. The beauty of the cloud is that you can run things in parallel, as Ed Parsons touched on the first morning about Google, but it's the same for all cloud providers. There's that element of running things in parallel. So if you need to read one file, or if you need to read 100,000 files of SegWi data, you can do those in parallel, and so you're really compressing the time frame in terms of getting that data onto the system and getting that into a usable state. Imagine if you're doing that by hand. I mean, you could employ some more data managers, but it's a completely different time frame if you're trying to do that on a large scale. So once you've read the data and you've got the data on your system and you can access it, then you want to share your data. I mean, we're very much for the thought that it's your data, you own the data, you should have the data in your cloud account, and you have the ability to share that securely. And so that's the thing, and it makes it so much easier to then share your data. So if you want to collaborate with partners, with academia, you can provide secure access to the bits of data that you want them to access quickly and efficiently, and it's far safer than sticking tapes in the post with your data on it. So that's kind of exciting. And then once you're doing that, then you're accessing all this expertise, you're bringing people to your data rather than sending your data out to lots of different people. And that really has the power to kind of innovate and bring new ideas and new insights to the data that you've got. So once you've got all these experts coming to your data, but how do you actually capture that expertise? As we've heard over the last 2 days, there's been a lot of talk about how do you extract information from reports, from PowerPoint presentations. I know, so having worked in the industry, all the information is kind of locked away in all these different kind of documents and projects. But what if there's a way to actually attach that expertise and that insight to your data? So what we've started to look at is the idea of building feature collections, so you can actually tag the observations directly to your data. And this has the ability to, then you can easily access that expertise. And also, if you want to start getting into the realms of machine learning and deep learning with and wanting that kind of human expertise, you've then got this core database where you can actually start to use all your examples of say, SALT, as we've got here. So I guess what next? What's my call to action? For NDRs out there, it's share your data and make it easily accessible. Because once the data's out there and it's being shared, people can work on it, people can innovate it, people can test their latest research. And that brings new ideas and new insights to your data. This is an example of the Australia data. They've actually, the Australian NDR, they've put their data into the cloud and made it free to extract. At the minute, it's still zipped up on Amazon, but it's a step in the right direction, and that's what we need, is more of that to actually make that data accessible so that more people can be using it. And for everyone else out there, if you work in a company, what's your approach to, maybe it's worth revisiting your ways of working, and how you're working individually, but also your ways of working within a company. It's like, are you collaborating? But more importantly, how often are you collaborating? I mean, I've seen time and time again when you're working on projects, you might kind of have a framing session at the start of the project where all the experts fly in, and then you have a day where you kind of do lots of collaborating, and then you might go for weeks, months, and maybe there's a review towards the end. But what we want to kind of advocate is this process. It should be a continual collaboration. It shouldn't be these one-off events where people are flown in to kind of look at it. It should be this kind of embedded in our general ways of working. And this is something that we're kind of really excited about. And it's something that can bring real value. Collaboration has been shown to bring real innovation. So, yeah, that's my call to action for the rest of you. James is on this afternoon to talk about Osokey Stream in a bit more detail. So if it is something that you're interested in learning more about, then please go and see James. I think he's upstairs in the council room. But we also have a demo online, so you can have a play, have a look. This is the link to the demo. If you go there, you can create a login, and you can see the same images and have a look at the data and have a play with it. We're a very agile, iterative company. We're constantly evolving and developing, and we love to hear user feedback. So if you've got any, we'd love to hear it, and love to hear how we can make it more relevant for you. So I guess what's my takeaway message? Well, grab those oranges, get that juicer out, and start breaking down those segments. to deliver improved data access, true collaboration, and business value through innovation. Thank you.